Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another scintillating episode of Let's Make a Game. Today it is episode 4 and I apologize for the slight delay. I know it's been a little bit of a while. I've just been a little bit snowed under with a few other things, including I've finished up the new playtest kit for an older game of mine, Wastelands, which has been in development hell for a bit, but I kind of had a bit of a brainwave. It's a slightly off topic, but that I think will sort of help reignite the design of that one. So you'll probably see something about that on the channel soon enough. But let's get right to it. Now, as you may remember last time, I spoke about the postcard idea and how I was going to do that. And basically what I want to do now is I'm going to design a few basic units that'll be included in that game. Now, obviously, in the final product, the units will be a lot more diverse and varied. But what I would like to do is just to create something fairly basic and fairly typical, just so that you guys can get an idea of, the nuts and bolts of the system, so we can see how the actual thing works before we try and get too crazy and too clever and too creative with the design of specific different units. But to do that, let's fly over into everyone's favorite piece of software, and no, it's not Photoshop, it is boom, Microsoft Word. Yeah, I know, nuts, hey? So what I have here is, just because it's easy to quickly edit and change and do all of that sort of thing and get it into like a printable format, this is what's happening. So just get used to the idea. So if you can see on this, I'm pointing at the screen, I know you can't see what I'm pointing at. Okay, if we see over here, we have 9 blocks of red and 9 blocks of blue. These represent 9 different units. They are 1-inch blocks. Now, the size of the blocks is something that I debated for a while. I had the original one that I had designed, and then when I actually printed it out, the one that I showed you in episode 3, and when I actually ended up printing it out, it was minuscule. So I did a few tests, and I know I was looking at a few sort of GMT games, and the chip size that everyone, or the chit size I should say, the chit size that everyone loves, and it's like, oh, these chits are amazing, they're so big and chunky and beautiful, is 1-inch squares. Now, 1-inch squares are good for me for a number of reasons. Firstly, I know I can get access to the dies that can cut out 1-inch squares. So even if I have to hand make this game myself, I can get that punch and I can and do that way, which is great. Another nice thing about 1 inch is that it's a fairly standard size, so hopefully there will be dies and that sort of thing existing to cut out those squares. And the other thing is it is very, very, very nice from a legibility point of view. And you can get a lot of information on it. I mean, a 1 inch is about that big, so you can get about the size of my glasses. So you can get a lot of information in 1 inch. So if you do want to sort of include things, little extra bits of info, or maybe an image, which could be quite nice, you could probably jam it in on a 1-inch square, whereas previously it wouldn't be that easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop back over into Word. Now, please bear in mind that this is in no way an example of what the final layout or anything like that will look like. Basically, all I have here are 9 blue and 9 red squares, and we're going to do the basic versions of 3 different types of units, and then the suppressed versions of 3 different types of units. So let's have a look at the archetypes that I had in mind here. I'm zooming in here. Okay, archetypes. So basically, I've got 3 very basic different sort of ideas for standard units. The first one are the melee dudes, your rough and ready hand-to-hand close combat fighters. So they've got good speed, so they can run up and get close quickly. They've got good melee and they've got good defense, but they have poor range. Fairly straightforward. The other end of the spectrum, I've called them snipers, but I should actually just call them shooters, because they're not snipers necessarily. They're very good at shooting, very bad at melee, average defense. So they can do a lot of damage at range, and they have a long range on their weapons, but their defense is not great. So if you can get up to them, they're not very good at defending themselves, which is kind of typical of the archetype. And then in the middle, we have jacks, which are average at everything. They're average movement, average shooting, and average melee. So those are the archetypes. And I've decided, like, as a baseline, just for this, we're going to keep the average number to 4. Okay, so this is not going to be necessarily a great tutorial in terms of potentially game design, but it's also going to just show you a little bit about how to do this in Word, which is quite handy. Alright, so I've got a table which is 6 columns. Is it columns? Yes, 6 columns and 3 rows, representing 18 chits, 3 in red and 9 in red and 9 in blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I plan on writing this stuff up. But Yeah, let's do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new table into this that looks like that, where it's basically got 3 columns wide and 3 columns high, and that's what we're going to use to sort of write up all our bits of information. The other thing I want to do is I want to align these to you'll see why, not this one. This is like word fail 101. Here we go. Okay, table properties. I believe it's table properties. So I want to try and align my stuff to, there we go, to the bottom. Perfect. Okay. You'll see why I've done that now. Let me just see if I copy this. Will it work? Yes, it will. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so I'm doing this, and I'm going to copy this table into all of these, because this table is going to be what we're going to use to write up all our bits of information. Great. Okay, so let's say we'll keep the top row for our shooties, for our melees, our bottom row for the shooties, and our middle row for the jacks. Okay, so let's determine our jacks. What I was planning on doing is this, having the movement value in the top left. Okay, let me just first make sure that the font is all set and ready and good to go. I'm going to set it to a font size of 9, which is, actually we can probably get away with it a little bit bigger than that. Let's make it a font size of 10. A font size of 10 on a game component, 10 points, is not bad. You'll be able to see it, you'll be able to read it. 10 is like pretty much your basic font size for any text, so that's quite cool. And I've picked a fairly funky sci-fi-ish font. I'm also going to just align all of the text in these things to the center. Alright, so let's go. Let's start with our average dudes, because they're going to be fairly basic. I'm going to start them with a movement of 4. So the movement is going to be the stat in the top left. Okay, so when you're looking at your chit, in the top left-hand corner is going to be your movement. And then I'm going to have their defense over here of 4 as well. Very, very basic. What I was thinking is for average, I want the defense and then the amount that they'll roll as an attack to be exactly the same. Maybe for a poorer defense, we'll have 2 less. So for the range guys, they'll be having a defense of 2 potentially. And for the shooting guys, they'll have a defense of 5. Okay, so that's quite good. So we can do that. 5, 5. Look, I know I could be copying and pasting this, but I mean, it's just sometimes in life these things are easier to do just manually. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Talk amongst yourselves while I do this shit. And the defense of the shooters is poor. Okay. So, what do we have here? We have our ranged jacks with a movement of 4, which means they can move 1, 2, 3, 4. That's actually not going to get you very far, although you could run 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make them their movement. No, let's leave it 4 because I want these guys to have a much better movement. So let's give the melee dudes a movement of 6. And let's give these guys, our ranged dudes, a movement of 3. So our ranged dudes are not going to be very good at moving. They're kind of campery, snipery dudes. So now bearing in mind, guys, there's no real science to it at this point. I think what's good to note, actually I'll go to the big camera for this. Like at this point, there's no real science in the numbers that I'm putting down. It's just to get a baseline test going. Because from that point, we can kind of look at it and say, okay, well, this is not working because this movement is way too low, and then we'll make adjustments as we go. But you just kind of have to put something down at the beginning. You can kind of guess, and I think we've got a decent enough guess, but you just need to have something to start with, a point of departure, and then from there you can start testing and saying, okay, well, no, everyone needs to be able to move more, or the ranges need to be much greater or much less, because I mean we're shooting right across the board or whatever, and then you can make adjustments across the board and individually from that point. But at the beginning, you just kind of need to have something down. So we are back. We've got our movements and our defenses. So our movement is going to be the top left. Let me write this down actually. Make all of this a bit smaller. Okay, so top left is movement. Top right is defense. Where is it? I'm guessing it's with an S. One of those funny words. Okay, so let's do our melee. These guys are all going to be 4 melee, so they're going to chuck 4 melee dice. Remember, successes on 5s or 6s on the d6. So, bah! Or maybe, what's also potentially interesting, I kind of like the idea of exploding dice. So, potentially what we could do is make successes on 4s, 5s, and 6s and make 6s exploding, which I think is a nice dramatic storytelling element to a game. Is when you have like dice that just go pop, 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 and all of a sudden things go out of hand and go a bit cray cray. Interesting. Let me know what you think about the idea of exploding dice. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. So there's our shooties. They are 4, 4, 4. So our melee dudes, this is our melee stat now. Our melee dudes, let's give them a melee of 6. 6, 6, 6. These are like the devils up here at the top, okay? And our ranged dudes are going to have a melee of 2. 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay, so bottom left is melee. And then bottom right will be range. Will be ranged attack. Now I want to show you, I've come up with a very interesting way of how we can actually dictate the ranges on these units. Now let's start with the jacks. They can have a range of, or a ranged attack skill of 4. And then I also want to write up their so the range is kind of a double-sided stat. It's got how many dice you're going to roll and how far your range is. And I was thinking of a way of writing this up that's simple and easy to sort of figure out just by looking at the chit. Look, in the full game, we're probably going to go with cards for the components and then have little standees or little chits with graphics on them. But for now, just to keep component count down and just to test the engine, we're going to try and put everything on the chit for the moment. Well, let me know what you think. And what I was thinking about is a way of sort of writing up these stats. So what I was thinking is we have the number of the dice that you roll in your attack as big, and then the actual range we set as, what do you call it, superscript. Boop. Right, have I completely destroyed the size of my grid? No. Okay, so you roll 4 dice and your range is 4. Boom. 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 I think that's a fairly straightforward way of seeing things. Okay. Although I'm starting to hate this font. But anyway. Okay, so the melee guys are very, not very good. So they are going to be 2, 3, say, superscript 2. So they only roll 2 dice in melee because they are so terrible at shooting. They are not good shooters. They are not good shooters. And these guys are going to be badass because they're pretty terrible at everything else. So we've got to give them a little bit of a bonus. So let's give them a 4, 5, 6. Let's give them a 7, 6. So they roll 7. So I mean, they're ones that are pretty dangerous. Okay, let's say 6, 6. 7's a little bit scary. So 6, 6. Okay. And that is going to be their range. Cool. Right, awesome. So here we have our basic units. We have our melee dudes who've got a movement of 6, a melee attack of 6, a defense of 5, and a range attack of power 2 with a range of 3 hexes. We've got our melee dudes who are our jacks, 4 movement, 4 defense, 4 melee, and 4 range. They are just your average, okay? And here you have your snipery dudes who've got a movement of 3, a defense of 2, so they're pretty vulnerable, a melee attack of 2, and a range attack of 6 with a range of 6. So that's pretty cool. The other thing I want to do before we carry on is let me do this. I'm going to, this is going to be a little bit boring, so I'm just going to remove all the borders from all of these hexes. Because I think that is just distracting and nasty. Okay. So while I'm doing this, let me actually just use this opportunity as a little bit of a shout out to say, if you guys are enjoying the content, please consider sharing it with your friends and families and loved ones and people in your gaming group, anyone that you think would actually be enjoying these kinds of videos where you get to watch me remove borders for hours on end. I wanted to keep these videos sort of fairly unedited just so that you guys can see the entire process, as we mentioned in episode 1. But another thing I'd urge you to consider, if you're enjoying the content, and maybe I shouldn't be making this plea while I'm doing something a little bit boring, but if you are enjoying it, please consider either donating through PayPal or becoming a patron over on Patreon. any way that can help the channel, because it is an expensive thing to try and run and to try and maintain and try and give enough attention to. And unfortunately in life, sometimes things that pay the bills, or not necessarily pay the bills, but contribute to the household a little bit, need to kind of take priority. So yeah, if that's something that you're interested in. But anyway, that was a very shitty plea for support, so just ignore that entirely for now. Right, so what I want to do now is, I don't know if you remember last time when we spoke, let me come back to the main camera. I don't know if you remember last time we spoke about facing and how facing is important, and now you're going to have the 3 threat hexes in the front and the 3 back are considered like flanking hexes, so people may get a bonus if they're attacking from their flank, although nothing has been included in this basic set of rules for that, but we'll sort of add that as we go. Let's just get the basics down, guys. Come on. All right, so let's go back to our hexes, and I just want to add one last thing, which is the facing arrows. So I've got shapes here, and I'm going to add a triangle, and it's going to go over there, and it's, oh Jesus, what the flipping hell is going on? Wrapping text in front of text. Maybe that'll do it. Come on. Why does this thing? This is now very embarrassing. Go. I'm pressing up and it's just going down. This is random as hell. Format shape. It's never happened to me before, I swear. Through text. Yeah. Oh Jesus, now what am I doing? No. Okay, this needs to go in front of text. There we go. Alright. Let me just remove up to the point where I butchered this hex somehow down here. Okay. Wrapping text, this needs to go in front of text. And there he goes up. I don't know what the hell is going on here. Okay. Jesus. Okay. I'll figure that out. Weird word problems. Okay. But anyway, that's what we have. So I'm going to finish these up, and but before I publish them, I'd like to know what you guys have to think about the idea, about the layout, that kind of thing. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, post your comments, suggestions, all of that stuff down below. And until next time, yeah, I'll talk to you soon. And thanks for joining me on this journey. I know it's been a little bit of a while, but I promise we're going to try and keep up at a steadier pace from now on. But thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.